Hi guys, welcome to this session. My name's Paul, this is Plan Zed, and today we're going to be diving into really the settings of GT1000. I've been getting a lot of questions about from the last few videos from the various groups on Facebook about partly about what can happen with ToneX and how you feed it into, where do you plug your guitar in? Do you plug it into ToneX? You plug it into GT1000, things like this. How do the send returns work? How do your output work? What are the right settings for these things? How do you work out what to do? And in this video, we're going to try and cover all of these things in one video. And at the same time, I want to hear a couple of different things from the ToneX. So let's start out on the neck pickup of the Les Paul standard 50s. I've got one of the Marshall patches. Which one are we in? Alright, JT50. Now when we come into the patch, I'm going to stay on this one for a little minute because it's mellower. What happens is our signal comes into the GT1000, passes through these blocks, and if we want to turn one on, we can just tap this button over here, it turns it on, turn it off. Well, we'll be going into all these blocks and things across the videos, and I have been over the last videos. But then here I've got a send return, where at the moment I've got ToneX in this send return. In the send return that's next to it, which is off, I've got a 2 notes cab M. So for example, if I wanted to have a GT1000 cabinet in here, sorry, a GT1000 amp, I would turn off my ToneX, and where are the amps? So there's one of the amps. So that's what are we in? No, I need to dial it in. I haven't dialed it in, and I don't want to kind of show you the tone, and you think, oh my god, that's shit, because it will be. Okay, so we're back on the Marshall, coming through the ToneX. We're going to come through, forget about these divides, we're going to talk about those in a minute and how they work in our signal chain. But down here we've got our outputs, so we're going to cover the input, the send returns, the outputs, and we'll start off by coming into the input. Now in a GT1000, what I've done to get the most out of both units is I've got my guitar plugged into the input of the GT1000. Now but I'm going to put a link. Sorry, I'm faffing. I need to remember to tell you this. I use a Gig Rig 321. I'm going to put a link to what a Gig Rig 321 is in the description below. Hopefully I'll remember to do that, just so you can see what it is. They're not very expensive, but they allow you to plug in 3 different guitars. Each channel's got its own volume controls, a little clear preamp on there, and then that puts it into one jack that you can plug into your guitar. So I can put all 3 of my guitars through this one input, which means I can put all of my guitars through one patch and not have any level problems. However, if you're not working with a Gig Rig 321, and working with 3 guitars, you plug your guitar into the input, but you can save the patches with different input levels. You see here I've got a bracket up there with 1. If I come to this button over here and turn that, you'll see it's 2, so that's my bass input. And you'll see over here the bass input's quite high. Remember, that's going into a Gig Rig 321. I'm going to be changing strategy with this over the next few weeks as I utilise my other GT1000 for my acoustic and my beats. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But in here, we've got control over our level. Now what you need to do for the purpose of this video is just understand that over here you've got a knob, you can control this level. You can make it 20 dB quieter, 20 dB louder. All right. Ignore where I'm at. What you need to focus on is where the level of this meter is. Now we've got meters. We've got a meter here, and when we go into the other view in a minute, we've got another one up top left and another one top right. So let's start out here. All my guitars, I'll get them. Let's go full pickup. I'm going to turn both the pickups on full. And you can see I've got a good strong level coming up to where the triangle is. Let's go back pickup. Let's pull that pickup back a bit. Let's pull the neck back a bit, just a touch. Okay, so we can kind of look at our level there and see what happens as we play single note stuff. But just remember, when you play a full chord, which is why it's quite good to get a level on your loudest pickup, good hard strum, get all the frequencies of all 6 strings coming through the pickup. So that's your strongest signal. Level to that as being your loudest, and then when you're picking down here, it's really dynamic. Okay? Now, as I say, we can save different patches with different input settings, so hopefully you've got a handle on, you can name them, things like that. But we won't spend too much more time on that. So now we've gone to the input, let's go to the output. So I'm going to go into my master menu, and here we've got different selections. Going to go into input output settings, and here we've got main out, sub out. Your sub outs are XLR balanced, and your main out are jacks. And I can't remember if they're balanced. I don't think the output is balanced. Now, there's a couple of things to note here. This main out you would normally be sending would be your monitoring. So you might be running 4-cable method. We'll talk about that. You might be running a 2 notes or a ToneX or whatever through your send returns and not using the cabinets. Going to front of house, but you might have some monitoring coming off your main out. Your sub outs are going to be going to front of house. Okay, so in here you've got output select. Now I'm running line level, and because I've got my ToneX in here at the moment. Okay, but also when I'm using GT1000 cabinet amps, I've got 2 notes that I put on it. So again here I want to be running at line level. But if I was, say for example, wanting to use GT1000 cabinets on the amps, let's have a little look. To understand the full of this, we need to understand a couple of things. Right, so your main outs are this block here, these 2 blocks here that are glued together. And these 2 blocks here are the same, but I've separated them. Okay. Now at the moment I've got my main outs off. I've not got them connected to anything. I don't need to monitor anything. I'm going straight to the front of house mixer and taking my monitor mix because I want the drums, the bass, my voice, everything else. I'm taking that mix from the mixer. So I'm literally just, this is my record station for my guitar tones, bass tones, things like that. Drums eventually, hopefully. In here, what I want you to notice is I tend to, when I'm running direct level, you'll notice here, our mic level is at 0. This, as the unit comes, is on 100. And the next page, you've got direct mix. I've got this on 100. As the unit comes, it's on 0. Okay, so here I've got all of the direct mix, and my direct mix is this, and going through my reverbs and everything else, my drives, everything. It's that mix that's coming through. I do not want any microphone action happening on that at all. It will mess with things. So I have that 0, and I found that also, because everything in a GT1000 is quite interactive, so I found the best settings, even though that's at 0, to have this flat, short, center, 0. Those settings, really nice. Balanced signal coming through there. Okay, now both sides are set the same. Now we're going to change view. What I want us, before we go into the next page, I want us to just remember that we've got no cabinet here. There's an empty space just there. So what we're going to do is go back into the outputs, and let's go to the sub outs this time. In the output select, I'm selected the same as my main outs, line level, okay? But let's say I was using GT1000 cabinets. Now, this isn't going to work on this because this has already got its own cabinet, and this needs a power amp. So I would need to run that into a 2 notes, for example, use the power amp simulation, because this is just like an IR. I say just like an IR, it's aired, it's interactive with the preamp. So it's actually really good, but my ears don't get on with the cabinet, the actual cabinet IR. So here in recording, if I go back into the sub output here, you'll see we've got now an extra block here where I can put in the cabinets, and we've got a load of different cabinets, and then I can choose my microphone. I've got flat here, but I can go through 57, etc. All right. So if you're using something like I don't know, four cable method into an amplifier using the send returns, and the back end of this is going off into an amp, if that block is there, you're going to have your tone won't be exactly as you want it, okay? You're going to be kind of stacking things. So I'm going to come back into here. Now, let's say you were sending the output of this into an amplifier. You can change this. Then we've got JC120 now. And now here we can go through loads of different types of amplifiers. There's loads in there. I don't have an amplifier. I can't lift them anymore because of my spine, really. You have a fish through there. We'll save time in this video for that. So yeah, recording if you want to stick some cabs on. And if you just want line level, keep it on line level. Now, there's a difference between the main out on this selection here. So we've got output select, which we just talked about. There's an EQ. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's go to the output level now. So in the main out, I'm set to -10 dBu. And I want you to note that here, there's no knob. Yeah, we're going to go to sub out, and the sub out will be different. The knob that would be here is on the front of the unit. It's just out of shot over there. And when that's at 12 o'clock, it is exactly the same signal with -10 dBu with the front knob at 12 o'clock as the sub out is. We've got a knob here, you see, look. -10 dBu at 50. The unit comes at +4 dB here. Now, that's really hot when you hit your mixer. And actually, if you ever at any point just want exactly the same signal coming out of both and you want to level it, these are the settings for that. And I only say that because I used to run different things and send them off to different places. If you followed my other channel, which I don't have access to anymore, because my Gmail got hacked and I haven't sorted out getting back in there still. So I did loads of experiments. So this is where I've ended up, okay, for running that. Now, if we come out of here, we've got global EQ. Now, you can have this stereo linked or off. I've got it off at the moment, but I've not made any adjustment to it. You do have low and high shelf boosts. You've got an overall level. You've got a low-high cut for each side, and you've got a parametric EQ with a frequency band, the dB gain that you want to increase or decrease, and a Q amount here. Okay, so wide Q, tight Q, notch filter actually if you do that. So if you get to a venue and you've got too much bass and too much highs or not enough of either, you can just give yourself across all your patches a little boost here, and if there's a particular frequency feeding back, you can just notch it out here. Okay, so so that's the inputs and the outputs. Now let's get into a patch where, ignore what's going on down there. We've come in, our input signal is coming in, and when we get to the send return, we want to send out to, let's say, a stomp box, a fuzz, or a drive, or something like a ToneX. We want to send it instrument level. Well, the unit comes set up for that. We've got a send level at 100, that's instrument level. Leave it set to normal, it's just a normal send return. We do have different settings here. You can branch out, which is just you send signal out, but it's not going to come back in. That's this one here. If I go back one, we've got direct mix, so it will keep what's coming through and then go out to your stomp box, come back in, and you can blend your dry and your wet, if you like, to describe it like that. And then you've got normal mode, where it takes a signal, you come out, you come back in, and you carry on through to your next block, okay? Now, I've been experimenting with this over the last few videos with the ToneX, where the feature has really been, the focus has been the ToneX. And you'll know that I did a video where I had this down at 50. I've had it at 70, 75. And today, I've got it at 100. The reason I've been doing this is I want to find the right balance of place and also give you the lesson that don't get too hung up on this. This is a balancing act. This isn't like a volume on an amp. Let's go to an amp here, right? So I'm turning my amp up and down. This is really obvious, all right? But this is like a balancing trick. You're taking your settings from this unit here and balancing with this unit here. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, on this unit, we've got 3 different places of increasing or decreasing volume, master volume, okay? So there's a knob here that does the overall unit level, okay? And that's an on-the-fly thing. You can use that knob just to turn yourself up or down. I leave that on 10, so it's running at its maximum, all right? The other place we've got management over level is in here, and I made an adjustment to this today to show you this setting. Now, here we've got an input, but I've got my input leveled in the GT1000 already, and I found that -10 is where I like it to be to interact and feel more like an amp when I'm playing it. I've been playing around between -12 and -10. Unit comes on 0. I did a little video on that, but here I've ended up at -10 for the preset patches. Okay, now I do find this unit irritating. You can't talk about anything in global without it going back to the front. You have to go through. I've done this video so many times, and it's taken so long because of this thing that it does. Now, I've been running, we've got another level here, main volume, next to the input trim. When we go into there, I've been running that on +3, but I've brought it down for this session to 0 and brought this up. What I've done then is balance this input using the volume of the actual patch itself. So if I go into now, these are the master volumes of the units on the ToneX we just spoke about. That's the level that's coming into this return. I'm leaving this on 100 today, but what I've done is adjust the level of the amp and turn it down. Now, as your ToneX comes, your level will be different to this. I've been playing around with these, so yeah, it's not as the unit comes. And I've got this level coming through at the right pressure, if that makes sense. You need to think of this as not as like, I need to hit this dB. It's about the force of the signal coming through. So maxing the unit out here, but keeping it on 0 dB, and then using the amp model itself to actually level it. Keeping this today on 100 rather than lower. I'm preferring the results, if I'm honest with you. Yeah. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is I'm working, as I say, using my sub-outs, which means, I did mention earlier, we've got 2 meters up here. Now, that's my input signal, okay? Let's just turn that pickup back a bit. Turn it back a bit more. Turn it down again. So I'm really low, and it's showing you that you still got signal coming through. But as I turn it up, we'll peak higher now. Okay, now you do have one on the other side when you're using your main outs, but when you're using your sub outs, you don't. But you do when you click into your send return, and it shows you the output here. And if you see there, so you can monitor your level within your unit here. I'm actually using my front of house mixer to do it. Okay, so that's the send return. Now we do have an adjustment here, but I've got no idea what it's adjusting. The unit comes as 0. I've not been able to find out what it adjusts. In the manual, it very usefully says you can make an adjustment here or something as ambiguous as that. It doesn't tell you what it adjusts, so I've just left it alone. Let's crank it. It seems to thicken out the signal. Very subtle. I don't know if that will come across on YouTube, but it seemed to thicken it out in the headphones here in the room. Okay, so I just want to cover one last thing before we hear some patches here, and then I'll end this video. I just want to hear some of these patches through here and a few different effects and things, and hear how they're interacting with these settings. But hopefully you got the point there, that this level here, you're going to have to do that to your taste of ear. I've balanced it for myself, and what I found is when I had this on +3 and the level here on 70, it was more or less the same as it was when I left this level on 100, but had this at 0 dB and used, I brought the amp down a bit, and then there when I done another shootout, which I recorded that, but because of how this unit works, it took so long I had to keep clicking through to the global settings. It won't just stay there and behave while you talk and explain things, or you have to strum a couple of chords to shoot something out, and this is not so user friendly for that. Okay, so here I've got an EQ block after this. So if I take that EQ block off, okay, what I've done is I've bumped the level here to give it a slightly stronger level, taking out a low cut 125, high cut 10K, taking out 4K minus 6 on a Q of 8, and then I'm doing a wider cut, so a Q of 0.5 at 315 Hertz, minus 1 dB. I'm finding it helps. There's already a frequency roll-off at around 300 in the ToneX, but this is helping with a bit of boominess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this patch. Just before I go, I want to show you a couple of things relating to divides. So, let's go. Sorry, I've got myself in a muddle here. So, we've got divides, so you can isolate your send returns now. So a divider is basically a channel switcher, but think of it that has a mixer at the other ends, and we can decide what we want this to do. We've got 3 of them. There's 1, 2, 3. I've used a divide for this one with a reverb. You don't need to, but I'm going to show you things in other videos what I'm going to do with that. This one here I'm using to direct signal. So when I press this button, the signal goes to the left. And when I press the button underneath it, I can chuck it to the right. Okay? I could have things go in stereo. So let's say both that. So this isn't true stereo, but let's just go left, right. Yeah, so it's a very simple little trick. You can do that with amplifiers. So if I come out there, come into a patch where I'm set up in stereo, I've got on this side we're going into ToneX, and on this side we're going into 2 notes, but it's a GT1000 amp. What have I got there? So that's a twin, so we've got a Marshall on this side. Let's get a bit of gain. So here I would want a MIDI assign. When I press my high gain there, I want it to change channel here. Okay, so let's come back down there, come to my logo. So we've got loads of different controls and things we can do there with this. Okay, so I'm going to end that video there in terms of the settings part. Let's just hear a few different things. So for example, now I've got that simple premise set up. I've done that in a bunch of templates where I've got different effects set up. Let's put on a bit of verb. Put a bit of compression on. Do is what is it? Yeah, let's start off here. This bank here is JTM 45. Back pickup. bit of fuzz in there, haven't they? Let's go to this one. Okay, so we've got a JT-M45 and then the 50 here. Oh, that sounds good in here. Oh, we've got a Plexi there. Feel like that could do with more lows. Let's just come all the way down to the other end. I'm just clearing an area at the other end. Well, let's hear those Dumbles that we were well, I say we, that I was fiddling around with. Both pickups. Now, I did start having a little look at starting to group together the deluxes. Look, now in here we've got a Bassman. What I've done is there's a patch in here when you get it. I think it's somewhere around bank 9 called Bassman 59. Both pickups. Let's go back pickup. Then I did a copy of it, just took some gain out. And then did another. Now all I've been doing with these patches is leveling them and just adjusting the depths and the bass, that's all. I haven't touched anything else yet. Okay, so I'm going to end that session there. It's gone on way long enough. Hopefully, I've got to hear at the end there how some of these are kind of feeling and sounding through GT1000. with this final set of levels, I think I kind of, in the room, I prefer how this is interacting. And that's the thing, with your send return, everything in this unit is interacting. If I save this patch and move all of these blocks around, as in the ones that are off, if I just kind of take them, put them somewhere else, it's going to change how the patch is interacting. The GT1000 is a very interactive unit from that perspective. And when you're doing your send return here, this return level, you're going to need to experiment yourself. But as I say, I've shown you over the last few videos, you can reach very different places, balancing things in different ways on each side of it, if that makes sense. If it did make sense, welcome to Plan Zed. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Take care. Bye-bye.